To order at 6:47 p.m. Each speaker will have exactly 3 minutes to speak, and we will start with Kevin Jesolo. If you can say your name and address before you speak, it would be much appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Jesolo?
Good evening, Kevin Jesolo. I live at 175 Val Drive in Stratford. I proudly serve as a paramedic here in town, and I'm the administrator of the Emergency Medical Service. I've been affiliated with the department for 14 years. I'm disheartened to be here tonight because I heard today that there's a proposal on the agenda to reduce 2 line items on the EMS budget through a budget amendment and eliminate the department's ambulance purchase and a collectively bargained paramedic supervisor's position. I'm curious as to why this proposal is on the agenda when EMS funding has voted and passed favorable recommendations to eliminate the town's reliance on the EMS subsidy to the general fund and has not voted on any elimination of the ambulance purchase or collective bargaining positions. These are critical to Stratford EMS's continuing award-winning successes to keep the town's emergency service in a positive direction. Stratford EMS and its staff have worked tirelessly over the past several years to restore our ambulance fleet, equipment, services to a state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line condition after years of neglect with politics wearing down the solvency of the infrastructure. Since then, EMS has realized a 15% increase in emergency calls, and we write off millions of dollars a year of bad debt to Stratford citizens in order to provide these critical services at no cost to the taxpayer during their time of need. Even with these successful accomplishments, EMS today still operates the second oldest ambulance in the state of Connecticut, being at 17 years old. And our 911 call volume is at historic levels for over 39 years of our service's existence. With regard to the elimination of the collectively bargained position, it is important to note that this desired reduction will have zero benefit to the taxpayer and will likely need to result in the reduction of several part-time and per diem staff hours, which will instead have a direct correlation to the decrease in ambulance availability. And the timeliness of their response, which will risk lives to the over 7,000 requests for service EMS receives each year. To be clear, EMS services will suffer if any labor or critical infrastructure items like an ambulance purchase are reduced or eliminated. Stratford EMS needs to continue a positive growth to continue to better itself and respond and adapt to Stratfordian citizens in 2016. EMS is self-funded, it's an enterprise fund, and it must be allowed to continue to be successful. These proposals to reduce or eliminate have no tangible benefit to a taxpayer. In fact, voting yes to these reductions will directly result in you, the council, potentially supporting this path to jeopardize your constituents' safety, health, and welfare. I strongly encourage the council to vote no on any proposed action that reduces or eliminates personnel or capital infrastructure items to the EMS budget this evening. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jesolo. George Mulligan, please. Mr. Mulligan.
George Mulligan, 429 Housatonic Avenue, Stratford, Connecticut. You have in front of you, each of you has two-sided pages of two-sided pages of the 4 attachments I emailed to all 8 town councilors, Attorneys Floric and also Hodgson. I will send others to the Stratford and Fairfield police chiefs and also deputy chiefs. Among those is a January 19th email to the Fairfield and Stratford police chiefs and deputy chiefs about an online threat to my life in June of 2009. For some reason, none of them chose to investigate. I can further provide documentary evidence that I filed online to the Stratford Police Online complaint form. And yet, no investigation. I've been hearing about the attack on one American is attack on all Americans, and I'm reminded of the John Donne eulogy about no man is an island. So the tragic things going on in the United States now has been going on not just from foreign terrorists, but also domestic terrorists, and even terrorists within the government. I also have a letter to the editor that was published about We the People last week about the right to recall and other First, Ninth, and 14th Amendment rights, especially voting rights. And on the reverse is information about the different strong political contacts of several people that are elected to higher positions. And within the email request to the Fairfield and Stratford Police to investigate is a reference to one of the other attachments that I sent to each of you. Now, those other two attachments are not for the public. They are for elected people, they are for the police, and they are for the media. They are not for the general public. And as a consequence, I expect that you're going to respect that and not hand them out willy-nilly, because there's some things that go on in this town that people around town know about and simply are afraid to talk about. And sooner or later, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. And as far as funding situations, I talked to Vinnie Chase about economy to scale bidding for health care. I believe at $22,000 for family plans for health care, which it was in 2005, if you could cut that in half, the employees would pay a lower amount, and the taxpayers would save $10,000 per 1,000 Board of Ed employees and 500 town employees, as well as retirees. Now, there's different plans. Okay, I'll wrap up. There's different plans for individual, couple, and also for families. And also, there's ways to save significant money on the pensions, which 6.3 mils.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mulligan.
$28.7 million the last 2 years went to the pensions. 28.7, 6 mils out of 36.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. The next speaker is Helena Quiltin, please.
Good evening. My name is Helena Quiltin. I live at 132 Reed Street, Stratford. I've been on the service for 29 years at EMS as a volunteer. Today, we were informed that there may be a proposal to remove an ambulance that was proposed in our budget and for a union negotiation supervisor's position to be removed. People here sitting tonight, do you all realize that EMS has its own budget and it costs you nothing for us to go out and make calls and answer them for you? I strongly ask you to please support, council people, the Stratford EMS and retain the ambulance and supervisor position. We are respectfully asking you to support this and just let the townspeople know they're not paying for this ambulance or the supervisor position. We do it on our own.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. McQuilton. Next person is Bob Mastroni.
Hi, Bob Mastroni, 1432 Main Street. I'd like to talk to you briefly about a couple of things that are near and dear to my heart. Number one is, Stratford has a wonderful educational system. We have great teachers and we have great schools. Having said that, I belong to the Senior Men's Club, and we decided that we would have a fundraiser on Stratford Day. Our fundraiser was to sell frozen yogurt, and we did very well. We decided that the money that we earned, we would turn over to the teachers. And so we decided that since teachers spend a lot of out-of-pocket money, people don't realize that they are going into their pockets and they're constantly buying things. We thought we would like to help defray the cost of what they're spending, and so we are giving them stipends. And there'll be an application form that they can apply. They can receive money to defray the cost of all the things that they buy for our most important and valuable resource, our children. We want people to realize that we, the seniors, believe in education, we believe in our educators, and we believe in the system. And so, with that in mind, I hope you understand that it's our goal now and in the future to look out for our educators in the town of Stratford. Second point I want to make. I don't know how many of you noticed what was going on in the schools prior to Memorial Day, if you got around to the schools, if you realized the things that are happening in the schools. I know you may have noticed Eli Whitney, for example. But our schools do a lot of good things to recognize our veterans. And I think it's a very important thing that we do that. Take the case at Bunnell High School. And I don't know whether you've ever attended the assembly that's held at Bunnell High School to honor our veterans. A man by the name of John Silvatic puts it together. And it's a very touching ceremony where veterans are honored, where there's a roll call of those who were killed from Connecticut over in Afghanistan and Iraq. There's a playing of taps. It's a very solemn ceremony, and what is so interesting is to see how these youngsters respond to that. And it's a very healthy thing. So if you haven't had an opportunity to look at what's going on in the system, do so. And I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach Mastroni. Stephanie Phillips is the next speaker. Okay, she's not present. Okay, Mr. Mark Scheck is the next speaker.
Mark Scheck, 161 Birdseye. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to discuss the historic budget increase that the council forced upon the citizens of Stratford. Over the last month, I talked to hundreds of people in the quest to get signatures. To a person, no one wanted this increase. None of your constituents agreed with this budget, yet 5 members deemed it worthy to increase our taxes. You 5 increased our mill to 38.99. Councilperson DePonte, you vowed not to increase our taxes, but you broke your word and went with the mayor's punishing budget. What arrogance, what self-serving hubris on your part. For what? A $40,000 art position? We now have the 9th highest tax, we're the 9th highest tax municipality in Connecticut. That means 160 towns have less taxes. 160. Our schools are getting failing grades, yet the school administration got raises. The council found nothing to cut from the budget except the visiting nurse service, and the Board of Education, who received their increased funds, decided it was prudent to cut world language to elementary schools. Chairperson DePonte wants to blame Councilwoman Manis for some of this about the visiting nurse service. I think we all know the truth. The 5 councilpersons that voted for the budget should be ashamed. Former councilperson Mark Dumas found $9 million to cut. There was no talk, there was no compromise with his budget or Stephanie Phillips' budget. Councilperson Young, yeah, you're next, stated on Facebook that after Joe Gresco resigned, that you were done. Basically, you said you quit. So when the going gets tough, you quit. What an excellent character trait. I hope none of our children emulate this behavior. I tell my 5-year-old never to quit when it gets tough. You have no excuse. This current council has caused millions, let's repeat that, millions of damage to the citizens of this town. Houses are for sale. People are fleeing our town. You damaged our property values. You're in real estate, like me. You must know this. The elderly are just hanging on. I've met elderly that are on the edge. Their houses are about to be taken away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scheck. Rosemary Martin.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Good evening, Council. I am Rosemary Martin Haydock. I reside at 401 Hilltop Drive, gratefully in Councilwoman Antezo's District Number 7. Although I am a member of the Sister Cities Chorus and chair of the Stratfords of the World Committee scheduled for recognition by the Council this evening, I am speaking only for myself as a resident taxpayer, not too pleased with the tax situation facing us all. Having been to our sister cities of Stratford, Ontario and Stratford-upon-Avon multiple times, I have seen firsthand over 23 years, and most recently 6 weeks ago, the impact Shakespeare, dead now for 400 years, has on the small towns that are our sister cities. In Ontario, the budget this year for their thriving theatre is $60 million. Stratford-upon-Avon, a town of under 25,000 people, welcomes 4 million people into their tiny hamlet every year. That translates to a lot of fish and chips being served up in the restaurants. What can we learn from this? Shakespeare and his theaters are cash cows, employing hundreds and paying the bills in our sister cities. Why not here? Think of what this industry can do for us. Yes, Shakespeare is an industry. We have the brand already. We just need to begin capitalizing on it again. Visit, please, and learn from our sister cities. The theater will bring the kind of economic development to our town that is desperately needed. Best wishes to the newest committee assembled to study the opening of our theater to a very eager public. Hopefully the committee will receive the full support of the council. And thank you all for your service to Stratford.
Thank you. Dave Meredith is the next speaker.
Dave Meredith, 375 North Abram Street. How you doing? First, I want to thank everybody, especially Mitzi, for the great job you guys did for the WPCA and the budget and the lowering of the taxes. Start off with something good. Thank you. Mitzi, I give you a lot of credit for standing up to the financial officer and the tax assessor. You did a wonderful job. All right. My first question comes in on the V&A funds. Why was it removed from the budget? Why is blame being cast on Ms. Manis? Ms. Manis takes time to explain. I want you to take time to explain this in your answer, please. Situation. And I'm under the understanding that the council chair is blasting Ms. Manis for selling out the V&A when, from what I understand, it was a all or nothing type situation. So, if you would like to expound on that later, thank you. 2016-2017 was not a compromise for any budget for many attempts to use the line item exceptions were dismissed out of hand. I already thanked Mitzi, so thank you. I want to talk about the traffic and law enforcement in the town. We have lots of people running stop signs, red lights, right turns on red, no stops. Cumberland Farms on West Broad there, or Broad Street. You know, people turning left, they're not supposed to turn left out there. There's no enforcement. You know, somebody's going to get seriously hurt one of these days, and the town's going to get sued. So I also want to thank
What was that corner again?
West Broad by exit 32. I also want to thank Mr. Dumas and Mr. Gresco for their service on the council. Even though it was short term, I appreciate their efforts. I have one thing I have a lot of empathy for right now, and that's the town clerk. The town clerk is a representative of the people and works for the people. While her direct boss might be the mayor but not the lawyers, it's time for all the grandstanding, all delays, techniques to be left at the door and do the right thing by the people, the petitioners, so they have an opportunity to challenge for positions that have been squatted in instead of having each challenged by decisions in the court. It's time to take Stratford back and make it more affordable for our seniors to stay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meredith. The next speaker is Peggy Varnish.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Varnish. My current residence is 85 Edgewood Street. And I'm here actually because I have some concerns not only about the budget in general as it was passed. I read more and more things that disturb me, but I specifically wanted to talk to Mr. Harden because I've texted him several times and not had any answers. I am concerned about the staffing here in Town Hall. Not only the fact that we seem to be overblown up in the administrative department, and that jobs that were never filled from the time of Ginny and Myron are suddenly now being filled. The fact that people are seen walking around with nothing much to do, and yet they keep getting more and more jobs and more salary, when people who do actually work here don't always get the help they need. I'm talking in particular, this being upcoming tax season, that the tax office is shorthanded and has been shorthanded for at least a year, maybe more. Don't know why it was not seen fit to take some of the money from some of the administrative offices that don't really seem to need to be there. Not certainly, I mean, I can't prove that, but it seems to be a general consensus of opinion. The President of the United States needs a chief of staff. I'm not sure why the mayor of the town of Stratford needs a chief of staff. Anyway, the tax office is already being informed by the new CAO, I guess he is, that makes that decision. They have already received their notice that come tax season, they are to give up both their morning coffee breaks or breaks, their afternoon breaks, and their lunch hours will go to 1/2 hour. This, at the same time, they are not being given anybody to fill the vacancy that was there. I mean, this is a tax revenue office. These people bring in money, and we don't need angry people standing in the aisles when they're coming to pay their taxes. And this was the whole point last year, I was told, that they didn't want anybody standing in the aisles, and people didn't seem to get the idea they could go to the bank. So they cut all the hours, all the breaks and the lunch hours of the people working in the tax office. I presume then that if you need to go potty, you raise your hand, and somebody decides whether you can or cannot. I don't understand why this was not addressed. I don't understand why all of this extra money that was given to people for supposedly taking on second jobs or parts of second jobs in offices that probably don't bring in the kind of revenue that some of the other offices do. It seems like the worker bees in this town hall are suffering. Now, whether they're union or not, they have a right to be treated at least as well as the administrative officers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Varnish. The next speaker is R Augustus.
My name's R Augustus. I live at 94 Noble Street. I'd just like to quickly say that there aren't many things that I would think the old council did better than you guys, but having that beep be a warning that you're almost out of time as opposed to you're out of time, so get away from the microphone, works better for the speakers. I'd like to give a quick shout out to the Complete Streets project. I hope that all of you are on board with them. A downtown that can be walked and biked will do much more to make this town livable than another overstuffed housing development pinned in against I-95 or a 700-car parking garage on a dead-end street on the outskirts of the historic district. As for the budget, I was disappointed in my three fellow Democrats, and I've tried to express that directly to each of them. But Mr. Chase, I'm also quite disappointed in your vote. In January of 2015, on a cold and icy night, a group of about 60 citizens came out to oppose the mayor's plan to seize your property by eminent domain. We stood up for you that night. It would have been nice if you could have returned the favor. I'd like to take just a moment to thank the two former members of the council. They both voted against this tax increase. Joe Gresco is a good man, and I hope he will represent us in Hartford as well and for as long as his mentor, the late, great Terry Backer. And while I'm sure some of you are happy to see Mark Dumas gone, I hope you will have learned from him the importance of transparency. He live-streamed these meetings so that people who couldn't make it could still watch. Remember his admonitions about the use of executive sessions. He may not be on the council anymore, but he's still around, and he will be on top of you if you abuse it. We, the people, have a right to as much information as you can share. I hope that tonight you will adopt the open checkbook policy that Mark helped move forward, and I hope that some of you will have learned from the budget fiasco and will always think first of the people and work your hardest to do right by them. God bless you, Mitzi, for all that you have done and all that you will do. Hopefully you and Tina don't have to fight for us alone. And as for Tina, there have been some complaints about decorum, and some people in town want to try to shut her down. Well, let me make this clear to you. You do so at your own peril. I think I speak for almost everyone in this room when I say we love Tina Manis. She is a breath of fresh air, the hardest worker I know, and incredibly intelligent. She is what Stratford needs, not the back rooms, not the old guard. And if you need further proof of that, you should have been here at 6:15 when Tina gathered a group of us together for a moment of silence for the victims in Orlando. It was very moving and very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Augustus. The next person is Robert Jekyll, though I was informed that he's not present. Is that true? Okay. The next person is Frank Parody. No, you're the next person on this list, Frank Parody.
My name is Frank Parody. I live at 798 East Broadway. I'd want to echo a lot of what Steve said. I want to give credit where credit is due to Tina for all of her efforts to, for all of us to memorialize earlier this evening about the terrible events that occurred in Orlando earlier or prior day. It showed the town's heart. It showed our concern. You all have a tough job, and a lot of the anger, the bitterness, is just part of the problems that we're seeing in our society. It's an angry electorate. It's an electorate that's willing to take on a gentleman who has never held public office as a major party candidate. It is a very, very volatile time in our country's history. Locally, you know, it's difficult to be angry on a face-to-face basis. You know, none of us could ever say whatever we would maybe do behind a keyboard or behind, in a letter. On a face-to-face basis, we could all treat each other with dignity and respect. We get that here, and it's deeply appreciated that you come, you listen, and you make an effort to deal with the issues that the people bring you. The issue I brought up not too long ago, and I continue to go at, is that the mayor would not be remiss in also participating in this event. It's important for the people to feel that they're being heard, that they're being listened to, that their complaints are being taken seriously, and that is missing. You're not the only people in charge here, and the fact that they're not able to express themselves to the chief executive of our town is problematic. It leaves people with a taste in their mouths that they're not being heard, that they're not being taken seriously, that they're not being listened to. This is necessary. It's not really productive, but it makes people feel that that someone cares and that they have a voice, and at some level that they have an avenue to get to their issues, their problems, and also to bring forward ideas, positive things, opportunities that may exist where we can add to the town as opposed to just complain about what goes on in it. I give you all credit. It's going to be a long night. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parody. Scott Farrington Posner, please.
Good evening, everyone. Scott Farrington, Posner, 76 Homestead Avenue. Well, I thought today a little bit of what I was going to say here tonight. I've kind of gone back and forth, and I think what I want to say most is I want to say thank you to one person who's not in the room. I want to say thank you to Mark Dumas. I've gotten to know Mark pretty well over the past year. We practically ran a campaign together. Mark stood for transparency. He stood for openness. He stood to represent the people, something that unfortunately I didn't see from 5 of you in the budget vote, was representing the people. So I'm going to keep this nice and short. Also, I'd like to thank Joe Gresco, who's not here as well, for representing the people in the budget vote as well. What I am going to say is I'm the only elected official in District 2 now, and District 2 has no representation on that council, and I would like for all of you to consider that when you're voting and when you're going to make decisions that affect this town, because we don't have any representation whatsoever, and we're not going to have any representation from what I hear possibly for quite a few months. So please consider that district. There's a lot going on in that district. We are the district that, quite honestly, we feel like we're under attack all the time by the town. There's a lot going on between overdevelopment, center school, Shakespeare. There's a lot going on over there in District 2. That's why please consider us. And I also offer my assistance to everyone as an elected official to advocate on behalf of District 2. And lastly, Mr. Hardin, I don't think you're going to be lonely for long up there. I'll see you in November, and I'll try to get you out on time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farrington Posner. Linda Palermo is next, please.
Linda Palermo, 46 Fort Place. I would like to thank all of those council people that are here this evening that voted against the budget. It took a certain amount of courage, but I thank you wholeheartedly. Tina, thank you very much for your hard work. And with regard to Mark Dumas, no, I didn't. I have to say, Mark is a very intelligent, forthright person. He did a hell of a job while he was up there, and he didn't care if it meant going against his brother, attorney. He spoke what he felt was right. I congratulate him and commend him for taking care of this issue because there may be a personal issue involved here, and I give him a vote of thanks for having the courage to deal with that home situation, but for dealing with us as taxpayers. We should never forget Mark, and we should try to find a space for him in our political circle so that he can still do some work and good for the town. I have to say, he is one hell of an attorney. And although there may be some out there that may not think so, but I do, and I'm sure a lot of you do. And there again, thank you. I am very heavy-hearted that there are those that voted for that budget because it falls back on us, the taxpayer. We're going to have to crack our nut at home. We're going to have to do with a lot of things without them, I should say. And it would have taken just one vote with a no, and we would have been a victor instead of having our absent-seated mayor, who's got another obligation this evening, to break that tie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person is Walter Rimkunis.
Good evening. Walter P. Rimkunis, 425 2nd Avenue, Lordship Section, Stratford, Connecticut. I have a statement and several questions. First of all, I've been following you people since you got together as a unit, and I am happy to say you got good marks so far. The old school of rushing things through, no debate, everybody just handed a paper and when the chairman said something, everybody nodded their heads, bobblehead dolls as I used to call them. We don't have that. We have finally people that are asking questions. Questioning, come on, let's fix this thing. We finally got people who are asking questions. Everybody has been asking questions. Both sides of the aisle, we don't even know who's what on here. But it is a plus in your part. One thing that got me, Mr. Shields, or whatever his name is over here from the 2nd District, picked one person out of 5 who voted for the town budget. There were 4 others. If it for one, it should be for all the 4 as well, not just the one. All were in on it. Okay, let's switch off now. Several things have come to mind. Several years ago, prior to the Stratford Shakespeare group got in, money was put aside for Shakespeare White House renovations. It's been sitting there. Meanwhile, the paint is peeling and the place is falling down. Come on. Let's push on it. Get that White House brought up to a standard so it'll look like something that the town of Stratford could be proud of. Another thing that irks me and my wife very much, all the time we go down to Bonds' Dock, which is supposed to be a showplace here for town. Who authorized that ugly-looking barricade? Have you been down and seen it? Have you? Any of you? I mean, come on. It's ridiculous to put something like that up. You think somebody's going to come through with a tank? 2 more fast questions. You got over 35 minutes yet before you have to start.
Yeah, but I need to be fair to everybody else.
I realize that. You got to get your lunch over there. I see where the airport is going to go up for sale. But whatever happened to that land that was promised by us from the mayor when we gave them permission to move Main Street? They were going to give us 38 acres of the water, basically wetlands. 38 acres. We better get it before Ganem sells that up to the state. Okay? I won't. The other rest of it is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rimkunis. Gerald Gray, please.
Good evening. I'm Gerald Gray, daughter of Dolores Gray, 29 Shoreline Drive, Lordship. I spoke before you all a month ago at the last town council meeting. I told you all of the up to $33 million theft of the body of assets that had been co-created entirely from scratch by my mother, Dolores Gray, and me, beginning in 1971, when she and I opened a little store called Nature's Way Health Foods over at the corner of Barnum Avenue Cutoff and Main Street here in Stratford. I told you all of how in spring 2009, my mother had turned to the Stratford Senior Center, the Baldwin Center's then director, Carrie McNanama, whom my mother knew well from years of Mom donating so much from Nature's Way to the Stratford Baldwin Senior Center. My mother turned to Miss McNanama for advisement on whom to turn to, as Mom had realized that our attorney, Larry Engelman and Fred Krug, and her son, my brother Jay Gray, and our CPA, Anton Kimball, had for years been stealing, converting, misappropriating millions of dollars worth of the assets that my mother and I co-earned as these thieves transferred those assets into their own pockets. Miss McNanama advised us to immediately turn to her crony, the Stratford Town Attorney, Kevin Kelly, for help. We did so. I told you all that instead of helping us, Kevin Kelly, through his private law firm of Jackson, Bishop, and Kelly, then submitted my mother into the probate estate robbing racket of his longtime political and personal crony, F. Paul Kermay, also known as King Kermay, and how on August 27, 2009, my medically diagnosed, mentally capable and competent, in no need of a conservator, was, without Mom's or my knowledge, participation, or consent, was put by Kermay into conservatorship under some total stranger named Katrina Camera, a Shelton attorney whom we learned way too late is the #1 operative for probate court-enabled asset robbing, as is done by this filthy cartel, which is composed of elder law attorneys, probate judges, town senior center staff like Baldwin, Stratford municipal employees like Maureen Whalen, DSS Protective Services for the Elderly, and the local St. Vincent's and Bridgeport hospitals, and local nursing home long-term care facilities, whom all work together to have their friendly local probate judge sentence their targets to the stripping of civil rights and assets and placement into involuntary conservatorships and guardianships, so that their targets' assets may go into their own pockets via involuntary redistribution of assets. The abject horror of learning that everything you own and all of your civil rights can be stripped from you by a probate judge is almost incomprehensible to believe, but it is the #1 crime being committed in the 21st century. It is being done every day, every week, every month to thousands of such targeted victims, to the tune of several $billion of assets completely robbed annually in probate actions against targets just like these predators have done here in Stratford to my mother and me. We have learned that the corruption in this town is so thoroughly entrenched, and the Stratford town attorneys, whether they are hired on as Stratford town attorneys like Kelly and Bishop and Jackson were, or are subcontracted like Kelly and Bishop and Jackson and Bersham, Moses, and Devlinses now are also in the process of engaging in other such predatory actions against Stratford residents. That being Stratford municipal predation, seizure of properties through trumped-up hoarding and blight charges, and the billing for seizure of properties. As I told you all last month, on September 15th, 2015, I came home to my mother's 40-year-ago cash-purchased and my beachfront cottage, 29 Shoreline Drive, which the pack of predators have had me in court fighting their theft of this Stratford home since 2013. I came home to find that an entirely illegal raid had been conducted that day and that all of our belongings on this property had been seized. I learned that town attorney Tim Bishop had illegally ordered the raid as conducted by his subcontracting of some firm named Marin Contractors to take everything. Bishop then sent me a letter stating that the town was putting a lien on the cottage to cede the cottage for foreclosure action for the Marin Company's bill of many thousands of dollars of the town stealing all of our belongings from our home via this subcontracted company. When I then requested to Bishop the documents and paperwork behind all this...
Ms. Gray, thank you, but I don't think this is the right forum for I know everything that happened to you, and I just wonder whether this is the right forum. And anybody who's interested, if you'd like, you can use room 213 now.
All right, well, I just wanted to point out that this is what town attorneys are doing and being done every week in short calendar 02 in Bridgeport Superior Court, that now Kelly and Jackson's firms are over there doing similar municipal predations as contracted by the town of Stratford.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Gray.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that is the end of the public forum. The meeting starts at 8 o'clock. Until they speak, please.
There's a sheet that's going around. I want to make sure everybody gets it so I can reference it.
You can start now.
I want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak tonight. I appreciate it very much. The reason I'm here tonight is to talk about the V&A as my first issue, specifically the reinstatement of $53,000 for the V&A that was cut and removed in the last budget cycle. As I have emailed all of you before and spoken to most of you, this money is only used for Stratford residents. It is only used for those people who have no other coverage, where Medicaid does not cover them. They're underinsured. The average age is 77 years old, so they're all seniors all over town. This money has seen, in the last 9 months, 90 patients, 350 visits, which would not have happened if we did not have these funds. The V&A has had these funds for $53,000 for the last 30 years without one increase, without ever being cut. There is a surplus that has been identified of $150,000 with a line item attached to it. I am asking for your support to add it to the agenda and to pass that. The money is there, the need is there, and right now those services are being cut for those people who are not receiving those funds as of the end of the month. My second comments are really more specifically to the process and more directed at Council Chairman Beth DePonte. I sent an email on behalf of Councilwoman Mitzi Intezo and Councilman Wally Kadim on time, on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, with this resolution as part of their request. I received a response that this would not receive a vote, and it was not added to the agenda. I was in disbelief. But what bothers me the most is that by not adding it to the agenda, you have disrespected your fellow council members. You have denied their ability to represent their districts and their constituents and their needs of their districts. That is hurtful to their districts. Furthermore, you use the request of Ms. Manis as a reason not to support it, where Ms. Manis has publicly said and emailed that she supports it, as well as many other council members that I've spoken to, including Mr. Young and several others. I haven't spoken to Mr. Hart.
Thank you very much, Ms.
I'm asking for you to respect our council members, and more importantly, to respect the public.
Thank you very much. right, that ends the public forum. Thank you.